Hey guys, continuing Iamblichus' Exhortation to Philosophy, chapter 12, chapter which is about happiness. He concludes everything, links it together, and demonstrates that philosophy, we should exhort ourselves to study a philosophy because it will bring us the happiest life. And previous chapter, he talked about pleasure, usefulness, and happiness also. So in this chapter, essentially, this is a very small chapter, literally like one page. He splits the information into two ways. One is he talks about the physical life that we live, and another philosophical life. So he says in the physical life, what happens is, because of mental dullness, when we enter into an alien environment, which is the physical reality, this environment is alien to us. This is not our natural environment. And if we study Platonism, we understand why. So we enter the physical environment, which is an alien environment to us. And the entrance creates a mental dullness. And when this coupled with this, we get ignorance. We don't know what really is going on. Because of this ignorance, we start to pursue necessities. So he calls things, he calls them necessities or practical things, which is, as I understand it, it's everything is physical. So it's including things that influence those things. For example, fame, respect, social status, and so on. Normally people acquire those qualities, those attributes, to try and get more things. Better living house, like for example a better car, more money which they can spend on more things, and so forth. So our lives are driven towards getting necessities or practical things. This is our priority, and we think this is the purpose of our life. And we think this because we're ignorant. We do not understand what is really going on. We do not understand this because we're in an alien environment and our mind is dull. And we see this in terms of, if we observe a philosopher from, let's say, day zero and onwards, as a person starts to study and practice more and more philosophy, we see how their priorities start to change over the years. Again, Iamblichus isn't saying this, this is just what I've noticed from being in these kind of circles. The person starts to value less practical and necessary things, physical things. They start to value other things more. Relationships, truth, honesty, and so forth. And we see this. If we observe a spiritual practitioner, we see this. And we observe them over years, a period of years. We can see a lot of this happening. They will start to, if they were in a job where they had to lie to people to make money or somehow scam people, after a few years of being a spiritual practitioner, it'll start to grind them, and they'll start to, they may leave that job because it's unethical. While before their priority was this, for example. Again, I'm simplifying things extremely here, and obviously there's lots of difference and variety in how people behave in these situations. But this is kind of like one way of looking at it. So our physical life, typical person's physical life, is aimed at getting more and more necessary and practical things that they can use. Let's look at a philosophical life. What does that look like? Here, Iamblichus says, by philosophizing. And again, remember, he doesn't mean only theory. Philosophy, as I said in the previous video, according to Iamblichus, is a science of perfect living. So it's a very active thing. It's not just thinking, it's transforming your life physically. So it's more perfect, so there's more good in it. So he says, by philosophizing, we're starting to live more and more according to the truth. And we're starting to see and contemplate the ways of the gods. And this these contemplations, these realizations start to give us incredible pleasure and happiness. So you see very two different orientations in life. This person's priority is to get as many things as possible, or as valuable things, or as newer things, and so forth. But the priority is things, physical things. That's where their energy goes, into the physical reality, essentially. They're energized by, and they focus on the physical reality. This person, the philosopher's life, the philosopher is the opposite. He's energized not by the physical reality, but he sends his energy upwards, towards contemplations and of higher truths, and of the ways of the gods, of how this reality is designed, and so forth. And by sending this energy upwards, he's starting to get more and more energy back, and he starts to experience more pleasure and happiness as a result of it. Not only because he's sending it upwards, but because, remember how the soul is structured. By doing this, by sending the energy upwards in terms of contemplations, the person is using themselves how they're meant to be used. They're using their mind in the way it is meant to be used. They're using it to reason and to contemplate. Because of that, we get like a harmony developing. Again, this is my spin on this, on what Iamblichus means by this. Yeah. So of course, the person starts to get higher and higher. They start to experience more pleasure and happiness. They're using themselves in the right way. It's like, if you think about it, if this is the body and it's meant to be used actively and in a healthy way. But if I am very stupid, if I am ignorant, and I go and I start to run into walls and hit myself on the wall and I fall down, and then again I run into a wall and hit myself and fall down, I'm going to start experiencing a lot of pain. There's not going to be much happiness and pleasure in this. Why? Because I'm not using this body appropriately. I'm hitting it against the wall. This is not what the body is designed for. Naturally, there is pain in that. So when a person uses themselves to pursue necessary and practical things, if this is their only priority, if this is all they're doing, then they're not using themselves in the way they're meant to be used. And in a way, it could be argued, they're using themselves in the opposite way to how they're meant to be used. Because the way the soul is designed, as we see from Iamblichus in these books, is to contemplate higher realities. And Iamblichus said this, and in my previous video, when I was at the very beginning, I think chapter 3 or so of this text, when Iamblichus was quoting Pythagoras and Anaxagoras. I think, yeah, those two. Both of them said the same thing. That the purpose of a human being is to contemplate higher realities and the divinities, inhabitants of those higher realities and spheres. To send the energy upwards. So if I'm sending the energy downwards, I'm literally doing the opposite. So what is that going to do to me? It's going to make me unhappy. This is how I understand this. So pursuit of necessary things is sending the energy downwards. As I understand it, and if we see this from previous chapters, we need those things, necessities, for the purpose of helping us do our job, which is to send the energy upwards. Not for the purpose of getting more necessities. Otherwise it's insane. You see? It's otherwise we're pursuing this in order to pursue this. That's just insane. Plus, it'd be okay if that was our nature. But we're not built in this way. We're built in the way which we should send the energy upwards, contemplate higher realities. So we need those things. We still need necessities, we still need practical things because we're in this environment. But we need them for the purpose of this, to live a life like this. That is very important to understand. This is how I understand this text and this chapter. And if we do that, energy goes upwards. We start to experience realizations, insights, and that starts to give us more and more pleasure and happiness. That these things cannot even they cannot give us at all, basically. And I was talking to somebody. I think I was talking to my wife about this a couple of days ago. And I said, look how strange it looks. For love, a human being is willing to kill himself for love. And we see this in history, we see this over and over again in poems and so forth. That when you love somebody, and you love them so much, that you're willing to sacrifice yourself for them. Or we see this in war areas where one person would sacrifice themselves for others. What is going on with here? A person, part of this person, knows that there's something more important than physical reality, physical life. Some part of it knows that. And he's willing to align himself and his actions towards that, which is love and the welfare of others. And he sacrifices himself for that. And that is incredible. It shows that a part of us knows that there is a higher reality. And that is way more important. It is so important, they're willing to sacrifice our life for it. And love, or the well-being of others, is part of that higher reality. That's how I understand that situation. It's a proof, to my mind, it's a proof that these things are real and that they're important. And in the higher reality, in the non-physical world, these things exist, whatever you call them, ideals, forms, principles. And we know of these things. And we know they're more important. And the proof of that is in the way people behave. Not always, but often. When people are willing for truth, they're willing to sacrifice themselves. And we remember Socrates, he was willing to die in order to stay truthful. That is incredible. He essentially said that truth is more important than physical life by this act. And we see this over and over and over and over in lots of other examples in history. So what does that tell us? It tells us exactly this. Exactly what Iamblichus is saying in this chapter. So that's it. Let's do a mini meditation now, as always. And yeah, that's it. You can do any meditation or prayer you want. I do the same one at the end of these videos, which is Yapa. It's basically I recite the names of a deity from a religion, I guess. If you want to do that, you can do that. If you want to just meditate and relax, you can do that. You can do anything you want. Okay, a video will now appear. You can click on it and continue watching this channel. Thank you.